Well, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry, as always, for all of your support and leadership and making this always feel like a big family. We are focusing today on career progression and pathing. And this is something that we've seen as we've generally hold these We Do sessions about on a quarterly basis. We're always trying to gather real-time input, as many of you who have been a part of this before have known, through Mentimeter or Menti. And what we've seen on a consistent basis is that this is a topic that has been top of mind. And so I'm so glad that we're going to have this time together. We're going to have Christy, who's going to kick us off with some inspiration. I'm going to give you some tools and a framework so that as you're thinking about how can you proactively progress your career, you can have a game plan of what you do. And then I'm so thrilled that we're going to have a panel of some incredible industry leaders who will share their experiences and advice with all of you on your path. So to get us kicked off, Christy, I'm turning it over to you.
All right, thank you. It's so good to see all of you. And also, Barry, I don't know if you'd mind like talking at every one of my meetings, maybe giving me that pep talk every day, because that's awesome. And Blake, you do a great job of that too. But it's so good to meet so many of you virtually. And again, we're so fortunate to be in such an amazing industry with people who truly look out for each other, people that give a shit, people that are fun, dynamic, smart. And what I admire most are people that would stop a train for each other. I also call them PLUs, people like us. And it's why I absolutely love being a part of DPA. Believe it or not, my first summit was last October. And when I was watching all these just amazing humans, and I met just great partners and industry leaders. And little did I know, a month later, I was signed up to go to CES. And about 2 months later, I'm booking a flight to Cannes, France, and had the opportunity to meet Lindsay and just amazing people. And the intimacy and the way in which DPA operates is different than any other association in the world, quite honestly. And I've learned more in this year, and even just more confidence and belief in, we are damn smart people. So anyway, I just want to give a huge plug, and so nice meeting Jen and becoming more a part of this We Do group. And I just love giving back and sharing and just being that person to help, any one of you guys along your career paths. But it was funny. I think it was the 6th before Jen started her, I don't know, she just told me she was in 8 cities and a cruise and friends and filming seasons of Hangover 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 from her 3-day cruise she was just on. Right, Jen? But anyway, we were planning, and I shared my journey about my career, and she's like, "No, it's fascinating. Thank you so much. But you have a 5 to 7 minute introduction. So let's talk about turning points in your career." And I'm so fortunate. I have had 5 career stops since I graduated college in the year of 2000. And yep, my first stint included selling educational books door to door in 3 states to pay my way through college. I was blessed that one road in my career has always merged into the next, but it always included letting my leaders and mentors know I was up for more challenges. Give me a shot. I don't care that I'm 23 years old and I want to be a district sales manager of, 50-plus-year-old gals. I mean, it was just always give me a shot. And the number one piece of advice, and I would jot this down if you guys have a sheet of paper or a pen, but if you're doing something and you don't get butterflies, or you don't get nervous, or you're not worried about, we're going in to pitch this huge account, or writing the email to Lindsay trying to get a meeting with Amazon Ring after I met her, you're probably not doing the right thing, because fear drives success. And I use this analogy a lot, and you can jot this one down, and I remind myself of this a lot too. It's KFC, and I'm not meaning the fried chicken chain. Knowledge is K, fear is the F, and confidence is the C. The more you know, the lower your fear and the higher your confidence becomes. And I'm going to share where I first learned this. It was 9/11 of 2001, one of the worst days in American history. I was a new sales rep at a shipping company called Airborne Express. Many of you probably have never heard of them, but my competitors you have heard of. It was FedEx and UPS. and how I would find leads. And this is the gumption and how I learned the ropes and not to be afraid of doing anything is I would actually go into the UPS and FedEx dumpsters outside their buildings and find the waybills. And I would actually go and find the business shipping with them and present my amazing low-cost provider story. Give me a chance to ship an envelope to Miami. So anyway, on that terrible day, instead of sitting drinking boxes of Franzia and watching the unfoldings of 9/11 of 2001, I went down to the UPS facility on Wilderness Drive in Boulder, Colorado. I dove headfirst into the dumpster and I came out with 50 handwritten airway bills from a company called Circle Graphics, which I know many of you have heard. And I know we have a friend from Lamar. There was 50 airway bills going to Lamar Graphics in Baton Rouge. And coincidentally, Circle was located in the same parking lot. So as a 23-year-old, I walked right in the front door and Hank, the founder, was sitting there. And I said, how can I? And he was actually designing the first ever eco poster. So getting rid of paper and glue and glop and all that. Very long story short, Jen, I have you in mind here. By the end of 2006, I was filling up 3/4 of a 767 aircraft full of billboards. And remember, if I wouldn't have gone into that dumpster, I would have probably never, ever known I never even thought twice about what a billboard was. I went on, I just, again, a leadership from old companies. I ended up going and running $1 billion inside sales division at Grainger. And I missed my friends at Circle Graphics because I wasn't shipping anymore. So I ended up heading over to Circle. I ran a 50+ team of customer service and sales folks. And that's where I got to meet a large amount of the out-of-home buying services and agencies. So I took a little jaunder over to Grand Design, built Grand Design. We were acquired by Talon, which led me to the road to meet my current business partner, Doug Connor, and gave me a once-in-a-life opportunity. And he said, if you can double gross profit and double the top line revenue of this company, you can be my business partner. So that's when Ali Broback, who's on this call, joined me, and we went out and hit the road only for 3 months until a global pandemic hit. Tried to double a gross profit and top line revenue of a company in a global pandemic. But what I did do, and why I love Zoom so much, is Zoom pitches, and you're exactly right. Turn your camera on, see each other, say hello, say something funny. And so Ali and I went on a road show for about 1.5 years Zoom pitching. So our gross profit, proud to say our gross profit since I started the company 4 years and 2 months ago, our gross profit and gross revenue are up 240%. We now have 56 team members in 19 states. And remember, how did all this get started? Me jumping in a dumpster, learning about what a billboard was, folks. So in summary, I did make Jen a promise to make sure I didn't take up too much time. And when I reflect back on my career, I would give you this advice. Never, ever, ever be afraid to ask for what you want. And if it scares you, that's normal. Focus and spend time on connections and truly be present with those that you get the ear of. Truly, genuinely care. And be prepared. Be ready for your audience. Do your research. Be ready for the questions and always set a minimal and a highest expectation goal for every meeting, any interview, anything you're doing. And remember something special about them. So I know Blake and his favorite color and what he likes to do on the weekends because I got to know him and I genuinely care. And also one other piece of advice, and my team will tell you this, getting feedback is a gift. Even when it's not positive feedback, any sort of feedback is a gift. And this helps you to focus on your strengths. I welcome when people are like, you know what, you really suck at spreadsheets. I'm like, yeah, I know. Don't ever put me in a spreadsheet ever again. And so my team and, my friends and the people around me keep me out of doing the things that I'm terrible at. And I always ask, and be prepared for this if you ever come for an interview here at ODN, is what is going to be the toughest part about managing you? So be prepared to talk about your weaknesses, because people that are humble and can talk about what challenges them makes them so much more attractive than somebody's like, I'm perfect. I don't know about you, but I have no problems. I want to know what's tough about you, and I'll share what's tough about me, and let's make sure we can work together. But I could keep going on, but I always want to let you guys know I'm here to lend an ear. I am so excited to be a part of We Do. I'm so excited to be a part of DPAA. the passion flows. I do attend, I jump on as many calls, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend it because this is the most dynamic, caring organization I've ever been a part of. So I hope to meet many more of you. We're bringing a squad to New York in a couple weeks. And yeah, so Jen, I hope I didn't go too much over.
That was fantastic. And quite frankly, Christy, you are one of the most inspiring people, regardless of gender, that I have had the good fortune of getting to know over the course of many, many years. Quite frankly, I wish we had time to do an entire Christy show.
No, no, no,
A
no, that's kind of
2 hour,
boring.
maybe that'll be the next series we create. Because that one story that you shared of grit in action, of I'm going head first because I know where I'm going to find that business. And I'm going to turn that into growth is just such an amazing example of what we need to do to proactively move our careers and our success forward. And as you had mentioned, it's so important to know those strengths and weaknesses. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to make sure that you're all weighing in and being a part of this as always. So this is the time where you get to either take your phone out, open up your camera app, hover it over the QR code that you see on the screen right there. Or if you don't have your phone nearby, you can just open up another window right now, like another browser window, put in menti.com. That's menti.com. And then you'll enter the code that is on the screen. I will say it out loud in case you can't get it, but it's also in the chat. So perhaps somebody could just copy that from the chat, put that in the chat for us one more time. And that way you could just click on that link as well. Now, one thing that we're going to be doing, because we have an action-packed time for you today, is that to have you share any questions that you may have that is either related to the content that we'll cover off or the incredible panel that we will have. What you'll do is on any single screen that you see throughout Menti, you'll see that it'll almost look like a little comment box. You can just click on that button and put in any question you'd like for us to be able to get to over the course of the time that we have here today. Now, certainly we may not be able to get to all of them. And so that's why it's important for us that we can prioritize those questions that most of you may share. So once you open that Q&A, what you can also do is vote up with a thumbs up the ones that you identify or connect with. So if you see a question that somebody else already posted that's very similar to one that you may have, just vote that up. And that way we'll know that we can cover off on those ones first. And over the course of the time that we have, hopefully you'll understand what are some of those internal barriers to career growth, because women historically and based on research do approach their career path very differently than people who don't identify as women typically. And so we're going to talk about what that is and what you can do about it. You'll get to learn from the journeys of these incredible leaders, as we had talked about. And we'll talk about the personal business plan. Like every small business and company has a business plan. We're going to talk about how do you create a personal business plan for yourself to make that career accelerate as quickly as possible. And as I had mentioned, we'll get to hear from these incredible women. Krista Carone, president of Infillion, Helen Mayall, CMO of View, Shannon Shea Montoya, who leads the B2B marketing efforts at Yahoo. And as you already got to meet Christy, and so we'll be coming back to them in a little bit. Now, my company, What Cement, conducted original research with a team of behavioral scientists from Wharton to understand what are some of those things that hold us back from achieving our professional potential. And then within that research, we looked at everything and analyzed it with a gender lens to see, are there things that women are doing differently than men? Now, as you look at the slide here, what you will see is that the bars on the left in royal blue is how women respond, and the teal bars on the right are how men responded. And so the question was, why are you hesitant to seek promotions? And this was a question for people who had already identified that they were hesitant to seek promotions, which there were already more women than men who had said that. And then we asked them, why are you this way compared to people your same age and your same gender? So we're trying to take out those kinds of factors in the question. And what you'll see here, and this is organized based on how women responded most, is the number one thing is that people are or women are uncomfortable advocating for themselves. We're concerned what our superiors may think and that they won't think that we're qualified. We're concerned we're not qualified. There's been a story that's been rehashed many times over the course of the past decade about a supposed HP study that showed that women felt that they needed to be 90% or higher qualified for a job before that they would throw their hat in the ring for that versus their male counterparts, which was far lower. I'm concerned it would require more time away from my family, and I'm going to stop there because give me a thumbs up if this is surprising to you, that the men are actually far more concerned that it would require more time away from family. I've even been asked multiple times of, oh, it looks like maybe you messed up the results. It seems like that number is inverted. And the reality is this, the number is not inverted. We, again, had an amazing team of behavioral scientists double check this and triple check it. But as we did a series of interviews to understand the thought behind some of the numbers, what we've consistently heard is that most men are just as concerned about not being able to be as involved in their families' lives as they would like to be, but they can't generally talk about it. And it's not seen as acceptable to put that on hold. And on the flip side, you have women who are expected to slow down their careers far too often, to put their children or their family first. And I'll share a little story with you. When I was, prior to starting What Cement, I spent 20 plus years running sales strategy and marketing for companies like Yahoo, I'll always bleed purple, and WebMD and AOL and many others. And there were lots of highs and lows and lots of stress and anxiety. And there was one time I was really at my wit's end, and my mom had said to me, you know, Jen, enough with all this media stuff. Why don't you just open a dancing school with your sister? Okay. A dancing school. By the way, the last dance class I took, I was about 17 years old. And I really wasn't that good in the first place. Okay. This is not something that a dad would say to his son. They would not say, hey, why don't you quit that high-powered job and go become a hockey coach? Oh, by the way, you last played hockey as a junior in high school. And it's something that we see consistently. And many of my male friends have said the same thing. So let's keep in mind that we're all, regardless of our gender, it's uncomfortable to advocate to try and get a promotion or that next step or move into a new position. We're all concerned about failing. Those of us who actually feel less empowered to question things at work, it makes it more difficult for us to do that. And we get into this mindset of feeling like it doesn't matter what we do because we're not in control. And the reality is we also saw in the research that everybody has a strong desire for development and training and mentoring, but very few people actually have mentors. And it's something we'll talk a little bit about as we get to the panel, something we've talked a lot about here. But there are 4 key things that are statistically significant and different than how people who are not women slow down their career progression. We're less likely to take risks, smart, calculated career advancing risks. We're less likely to have and initiate difficult conversations that could help us progress in our careers. We're much more concerned about being judged than our male counterparts, and rightfully so, because in many cases we are harshed more judgely, or we're judged more harshly, but we can't let that hold us back. And we are more likely to think that what happens to us in our job is pretty much beyond our control. And we need to take control and look in the mirror and say, where are we stopping ourselves from advancing the way we could and should? And so just as Christy had mentioned, the importance of taking time out every year and saying, I'm going to do a SWOT analysis on myself. What are my strengths? And not only just looking at it through your own lens, but talking to your colleagues, talking to your managers, talking to people in your life to see what are those things people turn to you for. What are the opportunities that can be ahead? But then on the flip side, what are my weaknesses so I can shore those up or make sure that I'm not putting myself in a position where it's my weakest point? And then finally, what threats are there if I don't start to move in the right direction? Now, hopefully, all of you were able to download the handout from the shared drive that I had put into the link. If you were able to download it, give me a thumbs up. That way I know that we're all on the same page. Okay, great. I see many thumbs up out there. Um, Please take this time. We're not going to go through it step by step during today's session because I can't wait to hear what these leaders have to share on the panel. But carve out some time for yourself. Time block time. Put it in your calendar right now. Put an hour on Friday. Put an hour on next Monday and go through it. And it will help you, I promise you, in terms of pushing your path forward. One of the things that we've talked a lot about and we do in the past is building that personal board of directors. And so as you go through the handout, make sure that you're leaning on that board of your peer mentors and allies on that way so that you can be the badass that I know every single person here could and should be. Now, again, we're going to get to the experts, and I can't wait to see their perspective on the fearless business plan. And again, this is what every company has a business plan, but we're going to make it your own career plan so that we can break it down and make it really easy for you to be as fearless in your career as you can be. Because quite frankly, there are so many different roads and paths that we could take, even within this industry, even within your company. Please know, I am not saying during our time together, you should be job hopping or industry hopping. But even within your company, you have the opportunity to figure out, do I want to be a people leader? Do I love being an individual contributor? Do I want to be in sales or marketing or tech? Or obviously, there are so many different ways that we can go. So we're going to break this down. We're going to take the components of what a typical company uses in a business plan, and we're going to rework that for yourself. So these 5 key steps to your career plan, we're going to walk through one by one right now. So let's start with intelligence gathering and research. So ask yourself these questions. And again, this is all in your handout with the ability for you to fill it out right in there. So my suggestion is save the personal business plan handout from today, and then so that you can have it as a template, and then save it a version as September 2023. But these are the kinds of questions that we all need to ask ourselves on a regular basis. What are realistic options of what could come next for us, or even one beyond that? Who could I be speaking to learn about their experience once I identify what are some of those things that might be interesting for me along my journey? What would be the requirements of that? Do I have what would be required? And if not, how can I go and get that? Very importantly, within your own organization, is there a specific process that you need to follow? And then as you are talking to folks, again, some of them may be coming from your personal board of directors, you want to find out who can advocate for you? How can they advocate for you? What doors can they open? Who can they introduce you to so that you can make sure that you're moving as quickly as possible along that path? Another thing that you want to keep in mind is timing. So this is one of the biggest challenges I've seen when I've managed teams is that people are not aware of timing. So annual reviews and performance goals. Are you taking that time even ahead of that? So most companies will do it on a very consistent basis. It might be every December is when you're going to go do your performance assessment and self-review. And this is that time to start really thinking about how do you want to position yourself for what comes next? Well, this may also be the time in your company where they're calibrating all of the employees and seeing who's going to be set up for promotion, who's going to get more equity, who's going to get an increase. But if you don't know that that's happening, and then coming out of this or after that, you end up telling your manager or someone else that you want to move into another role, your company may have a process where those types of things only happen once a year. So start talking to your leadership and ask them, is there a process? Is there timing that you should keep in mind as you're thinking about how you can give more to the organization and bring more to the table? What do you need to be aware of? Another important part, and this is why you have to start talking to people early, is that generally, once a position will get posted, it's too late. Many times that position gets posted and somebody's in mind for it. So start having those conversations early. Another thing you want to do with timing is take advantage of any awards or accolades that you get. So if you're on the ODN team, because I know that we have a lot of you here, and you've just closed a big deal, or your client has won an award because of how you've helped them, that's the time to strike when the iron is hot. You also want to think about if you're in more of a technical role or project management role, are there project cycles or implementation launches that you need to be conscious of that would be really disruptive to everyone else? But as soon as that cycle ends, it's the perfect time for you to think about how to make a pivot. And then finally, think about what sensitivities that your manager may have and your team. So, do you have a manager who's going out on maternity or paternity leave? And it might really disrupt their life if you say this to them the day or two before they're leaving, or maybe they're going in for a big surgery. So, really be sensitive to that as well. Then we're going to think about what are the benefits to your boss, to your company, and to your customers. So, you want to take some time and write this out. Think about how is this going to help your manager? How is this good for the business and for the bottom line? And how is it good for your team and for your colleagues? Far too many people who I've coached or mentored will say things like, well, I deserve a promotion or a title change or an increase because I've been here for X amount of time. Okay. Time doesn't matter. Nobody cares about how long you've been in a role. If you've been in a role for a really long time, but you can't articulate how and why you're helping the business grow, then that is not going to get you that promotion. And on the flip side of that, start thinking about, are there objections that could potentially surface, not only from your manager or supervisor or colleagues, but your family or your friends of why this isn't a good idea for you. So proactively think about that. Well, what could those objections be? And then how would I overcome or manage or handle those objections? And are they real, or are those just limiting beliefs that other people may give to me or that I may buy into? And do not allow those objections to derail you if you don't believe in them, but think about how you can comfortably answer and overcome and handle those objections. And then once you've done all that work, that's when you can start thinking about, okay, now how am I marketing this idea? And I'm so glad we've got several marketing leaders who can talk about how they've marketed themselves throughout their time. How are you going to position it? Are you going to position it as a gain to the company? Yes. As opposed to a loss or threatening in any way, which is another mistake I've seen far too many people. So think about framing it in a positive way with, again, those benefits that we talked about, and make sure that you're understanding why you deserve the promotion. Some of you may remember this, but back in March around International Women's Day, we covered the fact that research shows that men are generally considered more for promotions based on their potential, this innocuous thing, as opposed to women who are judged based on their proven performance. So as you're thinking about how do you frame this up, make sure that you're touching on both of those things. Share those examples of how you have grown the business, grown the team, been a great part of the organization, but then also the potential that you have, and use that language, because that's how the people who are going to be making decisions will do that. And then finally, there's the last operational plan or logistics piece to it. So the more you make your manager or leadership's life easy to transition into a new role, the more apt they're going to be to help you again, not only for this one, but in the future. So think about, what's your transition plan? How are you going to make it easy for everybody else around you for this change to happen seamlessly? Even start thinking about, is there somebody you know of who could replace you? Talk to them, share your experience, and then help them frame up how they might go for your role. And then, of course, be conscious of who else may be impacted and how you want to share out that news. So, as I had said, time block time for yourself so that you can go through this process, map it out, because whether or not you are thrilled in your role and it's your dream job and your dream company, you still need to be proactively thinking about, where am I going? How am I taking my skills to make myself stronger and better and achieve my potential for a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Okay, so hopefully you see that you've got to have that courage to build the confidence, to invest in yourself, lean on other people to get their perspective, and use this plan to map out your path. Okay, so now I can't wait to shift to our panel and get to hear from the incredible experts that we have who are going to be joining us for our conversation. And so one of the topics that I would love for us to cover off on first is just where we started, of how many paths there are, even just within the digital out of home industry, where people can make that decision of, do they want to move into a different division or type of role, whether that could be technology, operations, sales, marketing, you name it, or whether they may want to move into a management type of role, or stay an individual contributor, or possibly even move back into a role like that if they have been leading people and it's not bringing them joy and happiness. So I would love to start off, and Chris, if you can share with us a little bit about, how have you explored these kinds of different opportunities throughout your career, and how did that lead you to where you are today?
Great. Well, thank you. What an amazing start to this conversation. And so it's so lovely to see so many of you and to meet you virtually as well. Just real quickly, as a background, Infillion is a portfolio company of advertising technology and marketing technology tools, and included in our portfolio connection to DPAA and everything that you do is In Stadium, which is a collection. It's a private marketplace of out-of-home inventory and live sports and entertainment venues. So that's my connection to DPAA and to Barry and to some of you on the call today. Very quickly, though, some people have referred to my career as a bit of a Goldilocks story. I started my career in corporate America, spent the first 17 years at a really big company, Xerox Corporation, rose up to be the chief marketing officer there, then was over at Fidelity, running brand and marketing for Fidelity, and then did a pretty radical pivot where I decided that I wanted to get better P&L experience, and I really wanted to shift from a core functional role, great C-suite role, and it was I loved every moment of that career for me, but I definitely wanted to get under the hood and get more experience on the operational side. So I decided, hey, I know marketing really well as a CMO and as a buyer of media and a buyer of marketing services. What would it be like to get under the hood and see how you sell these services and how you actually operate these type of organizations? So I did make a pivot, and I was a chief operating officer of a content agency. Then I went on to run a media company, a sports and entertainment agency, and now I'm in the ad tech world. And all of those roles have been P&L based, operational president type of positions. Common denominator being that they've been in our industry. So I was able to bring the perspective of a CMO on the buyer side to an operational leader on the sales side. Really scary pivot, I must say, because so much of my world had been sitting in the confines of a very big corporate environment. What pulled me in was colleagues in the space, actually vendors or partners of mine, who my initial role managing a P&L was with a partner who I'd done business with for a long time. And he came to me out of the blue and said, listen, I'm looking to scale my business, and I'd love to have someone who's a client help me grow and bring that perspective into this space. So all of these different leaps that I've made have been based on where can I provide value from my prior experiences. So whether it's been on the content side or the media side, or even now, better understanding your ad tech and your MarTech stack, that's been the common denominator in everything that I've done. I will take a little bit of a rewind and say that when I was a chief marketing officer at Xerox, I also handled corporate communications for the company, which meant that I was in the room with the CFO all the time and really got a master's class in how you manage a balance sheet, how you even review a P&L, and really was able to sharpen my financial acumen by learning, by listening, and being part of the financial management of the company. I've seen a lot of people shy away from those experiences. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was being a bit of a sponge and spending that amount of time with my finance team. So my learning curve when I went into operational and P&L roles was actually much shorter than even I expected myself, because I had had such visibility and exposure to how the business was actually being run.
Well, and I love the fact that you recognize that you didn't have that P&L experience and that you'd be somewhat stuck at a certain level of and there was some fascinating research that came out right before the pandemic, actually, from Working Mother Media, where they analyzed what were some of the biggest barriers holding women back from getting to the executive level. And hands down, the #1 barrier was women not having P&L experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of you who are like, oh, that's not my skill set, those aren't the classes that I took in college, that's not what's comfortable for me, I'd strongly advise you to start leaning into it a little bit and start, even if it's, there's so many different courses you could take right now, or learn how to read a balance sheet, and that can really help you on that path. I'm curious for Helen, for your path. I know that you've had some changes throughout your experience as well. Did you have any types of ahas like that, like Krista did, of I need to make this leap in a new way to continue in a different direction?
Sure. Thank you, Jen, for having me. And yeah, just to give context, Vue is an SSP for the out-of-home world, but that wasn't my background. My background and my track has very much been marketing. I started in B2C, actually working in the airline industry. And that was really interesting, because if you want to talk about a business where you're looking at costs a lot, the margins 20 years ago in the airline industry, 3% maybe. So there was very much that sort of always being conscious of what you were spending in terms of your media budget and how you were kind of going to prove and bring that return back into the business. But I made a decision, and it was quite a conscious decision, to change my career, because at the time, I'd done sort of 7-8 years in airlines. I was looking for a bit of a change, but what fascinated me was the media industry and the other side of those interactions that I, as the marketing manager who was working with an agency to plan media and to plan campaigns for consumers, I wanted to understand the other side. And really where the change was happening at the time was all in the digital marketing space. And so it was very much a conscious decision for me to flip and move into B2B. And I actually went to Microsoft Advertising. So all of the ad properties that Microsoft owned across MSN and Messenger, and then they had some gaming opportunities. So it was really very varied. But what I could bring, yes, I didn't have the B2B experience, but I could bring the perspective of, thinking like a client, of why would I want to spend my ad dollars, my campaign dollars on this media property versus another. So I think that my top tip would be that even if you don't have the exact skills, and to your point, Jen, of what you were saying earlier, we always, as women, sometimes focus on what we don't have. Let's look at what you do have, or what can be transferred, or what knowledge you have that you could just slightly tweak and adjust to be relevant, and bring that to the conversation when you're having that interview. Proactively offer those answers of this is how I think my experience to date is going to help you as a business, is going to help your company. So yeah, that was my career sort of pivot moment, I guess. It's been a while ago. And that was very much going into initially digital, and then it became much more about ad tech as programmatic started in the display world. I was kind of really amongst it from a marketing perspective as opposed to a technology perspective, but it was a great learning opportunity, and echoing what Krista said about being a sponge, just being around some of those conversations as innovation or as something change is happening. And I learned a great deal, and you know, move on a couple of roles. I'd been in in a mobile organization, and then this role came up at View, and they approached me because I had that programmatic background. So, you know, it was a really great insight. And as I said, I could also bring, you know, many years ago experience of being on the other side of the coin, as you plan and campaigns and think about it from a client's perspective. So there's always things throughout every role I've had that I've been able to take with me and bring to the next role.
And that's so important, to be able to focus on what have I done, and then how will that be applicable to what comes next. So think about it for a moment. What have you done in your career that has given you either the capacity to be creative, to be a great listener, to problem solve, to innovate, whatever it might be, and start capturing that. And for those of you who have been in some of our previous We Do events, we talk about building a confidence catalog. So every Friday, block out 5 or 10 minutes, look back on your week and see, what did I do that I should be proud of, and write it down. And then, to Helen's point, when you want to start thinking about how am I going to position myself and talk about everything that I have done that will apply to this new role that may not be an exact match, well, that's okay, because you're going to have all this ammunition of what you've done and how you've gone on that journey that will take you to where you want to be. And then, instead of saying, well, I don't have everything, so I can't do this, then you can just say, I'm going to build a 30, 60, 90-day plan for myself of how I'm going to close the gap on what I haven't done before or what I didn't do in the past. And so then that's when you start also putting some ideas down of what you think you need, but using your network and leaning into other people to say, how can I help close that gap? Or what do I not even know that I don't know yet? And then who can help me know that so I can be successful in this role? And that's where the power of a network is so incredibly important. So I'd love to actually turn it to Shannon for a moment, because as we all know, and again, we've spent a lot of time with our work with We Do talking about the importance of building out your professional network and your personal board of directors to really help you on your path. And I know that Shannon, you are certainly someone who has done a great job in building so many different relationships and networks across the industry. And so I would love to hear a little bit about how you do that. Like, what's the secret sauce there? And then what advice would you have for everyone who's joining us today in terms of how they could be doing that for themselves?
Thanks so much, Jen. Okay, is Jen Wiley just the best or what? I think I've taken 4 pages of notes already just in the first 45 minutes. So I'm so excited to be here. I lead all of our global B2B marketing for Yahoo. Yahoo, of course, we own some of the most beloved digital brands, including Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Sports, Yahoo Fantasy, of which I am killing it this season already in my fantasy. So I'm really excited about that. And of course, we also have Yahoo Advertising, which I oversee the marketing for Yahoo Advertising. And we are a DSP, and then we also support our premium O&O brands. So excited to be here representing Yahoo, which I love. I love it here, and I'm so happy and have just an outstanding team. But when I think about networking, I think about it in 2 different ways. You have your internal networking that you have to do at work, and then you have your external network. So I think I'll start with the internal networking. So when we think about internal networking, I think it's really important to develop relationships, strong relationships across the board. I think some of the challenge that people run into, especially when there's so much change happening, is that we over-index on certain people instead of really taking the opportunity to build those strong relationships across the business. And I think that's been something that's really worked for me, is to really take the time to extend that across, so that when there is change or when there is disruption, you constantly have that support and advocacy that you need within the organization. So I think it's really important to spend the time on developing those internal relationships. And then when I think about external relationships, so I tend to network both within our industry, but I spend a lot of time networking outside of it. And what that does is it really opens your mind to the possibilities of what's out there and extends that scope of possibility. I think if in my career, which is a zigzag, it has gone in all different directions, from the brand side to the agency to media, and then, a very conscious decision to move into technology. I think all of those decisions, when I was met with that fork in the road of where do I need to go, I chose that sort of path of what I actually knew least, right? And it's actually helped me develop in much stronger ways. And I think most of those came from folks that were outside of my normal network. And what it's allowed me to do is just really open up, again, that scope of opportunity and really develop this strong sort of holistic kind of vantage point of my career. And in marketing, it's so important. I consider myself a storyteller, and it's really important to be able to tell those stories through the lens of all different types of people. So now when I do that within marketing, I can represent the agency side of it. I can represent the brand side of it. I can represent media and technology. And that's really been helpful. So I know a lot of people spend their time. So my advice is, I know a lot of people spend their time networking within their particular industry, but maybe spend an equal amount of time outside of that and really use that as an inspiration to extend what's next for you.
Well, and I love that, because we all know that diversity, the whole value of diversity is not just to have things in different ages and colors and shapes and sizes, but it is that diversity of thought and perspectives that makes everything better. So we're going to do a quick speed round related to what you just shared, Shannon, which is people really get stuck on, how do I network with people? And how do I build those relationships across the organization? So we're going to do a quick speed round for all of our panelists. And what I'd like you to share is, one, what would be your advice of how do you network logistically? Like, what do you say and how do you say it? And then the second piece of that, because you are all very senior, seasoned executives, what do people do when networking with you that turns you off? And it may be nothing, right? But sometimes we get in our head that we're like, oh, well, I don't want to bother this person or whatever it might be. So first round we're going to do, and I'm giving you a second to think about this because this was not part of the plan. The first round is, what logistically, tactically do you do to network? What does that look like for you? So Shannon, since you were chatting about this, I'm gonna kick off with you.
Well, one is, I think with any networking, like, find the common connection, like really like have enter into it as a conversation. Really, all you're hoping to get out of it is a relationship and a connection. I think entering into that without the mindset of like, I want to get a job, or I want to meet someone that they know, or I just really focus on the actual relationship and building that relationship. One of the best ways in which I network is I schedule dinners with many of my friends, and I ask them to invite their friends, and I also bring my friends. And again, my technique is to tend to network outside of my industry as well as within. And what I have found is that that has just really opened the doors to a lot of possible partnership connections and things that are kind of outside of the norm. So that would be my recommendation. In terms of what turns me off, it's exactly what you just said, Jen. When someone enters into it and they say, I know you're really busy and, I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I think just own it. Just own that you want to, have these conversations, that you want to develop a relationship. And if a person is willing to take a call with you or to have a coffee with you, that's them saying, I'm happy to give my time. And so I think really just embrace that and don't come into it apologetically.
I love that. And I love that idea of friends inviting friends into whether it's dinner or coffee or even your own little networking circle that you create. So you start with that warm lead and it's so much easier to build trust along the way. Okay, Christy, I'm gonna get your perspective on, because clearly you are just that hunter out there. But we all know that sometimes you have to find that right balance of especially when you're networking. So would love to get your perspective tactically. How do you do it? And then what turns you off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I go back to my first few stops or, prior to being a CEO, but really, I mean, I geek out, I obsess over articles and LinkedIn, and I will actually attend so many different industry, it could be a topic, it could be OAAA, it could be a geopath, it could be, now I'm in all these media posts. I get on webinars and I scroll through all the people on the webinars and I'm like, ooh, is there something I could do with him? Is it her? So during it, then I'm connecting on LinkedIn, right? And so I go in and connect, and then I can go and find, different email verticals and how do I get a hold of them? And just don't be shy to ask. I'm so excited. I'm so intrigued, Bob. Wow, I saw you on this webinar. Can you relate to them something? Because you just shared an experience with them. So over my course, I still do this. I'm like, oh my gosh, Shannon, and I'll ask Shannon. I mean, this is no joke. I've never worked with Yahoo in my career. I'm like, can we just get on a phone? And I know I can help you and can. And, we got on the phone and had this instant connection. But it's like, can I ask for a few minutes of your time? She doesn't know me from Yahoo, right? And that was funny, right?
Okay.
But the point being, that's the recommendation I would give you all is jump on this we do DPAA media posts, jump on, sign up for free webinars, and then take note. And then the speaker, I can tell you what, if you guys write me a note and say, Christy, actually, even if I didn't do a good job, hey, you did great today, I'd love to learn more. Guess what? I'm probably going to take a meeting with you. So, and what drives me mental, because I get probably 30 candidates a week that want to work here, probably 50 vendors. And again, don't beat around the bush. I don't care that your cat fell out of a tree this weekend and that you like Mozart and here's a picture of a wolf in my yard. It's like, no, this is what I can help you with. Can I set up 10 minutes? Does Tuesday or Friday work better? So be direct, be to the point, LinkedIn, connect with them first, join the webinars and ask for meetings and be confident asking. Get rid of the fear and be confident.
Jen,
I love that.
Can I respond to one thing Christy said? Because I think that's a really good story, Christy. And one we have this great connection and it's so much fun and we laugh and we brainstorm. But I think one of the amazing things that Christy did was she came to that call and she's like, what are you really challenged with these days? What are you having a hard time navigating? And what was really great about that is that one, she called me at just the right time where I needed to talk about that, right? We're planning for Cannes. Here are some of the challenges we're having. And she came to it with real solutions, but she approached it in a very sort of empathetic way and sort of really opened that opportunity for conversation. And it was just, I think, a really good example, Christy, of you know, a conversation that's turned into this long-term, you know, friendship and hopefully partnership eventually, and all of these other great things.
Oh, and I'm going to be dangerous now that I know exactly where you need help in CAN next year. But anyway, yeah, no, just ask for the opportunity. Again, what is the toughest part about your job, or how can I help you? How can I simplify the process? People will love to talk about what their challenges are each and every single minute you talk to them. So anyway, I'll stop. My quick update is done. So.
I was just going to build on that, if I may, and totally agree with both of what you've said. You know, my notes that I wrote down around networking is find how you can help them, because people are very open. Once you've helped somebody, and do it sincerely, be genuine about it. You know, don't look for the immediate return, but just keep in touch. You know, also a lot of women compliment them on, you know, their shoes or their necklace or their lipstick or whatever it may be. And that was a tip I learned from Jen a little while ago. But, you know, make yourself memorable, help someone out, and then I really believe that a lot of people will pay it back, you know, but follow up. You need to do the follow up as well. Don't just expect it to be on a plate, but, you know, that it will start to get people more open to coming back to you, to thinking of you first.
I love that. And I think the easier you can make it for yourself to essentially create a template that you can reuse again, because Christy, I love your idea about joining those webinars and workshops and scrolling through who all the attendees are at the same time. I use a similar technique quite often. And what I do is I will write up a LinkedIn message, like a connect message. That's the exact number of characters. I maximize the characters. And then I pretty much, for the most part, copy and paste that to each person. So again, it might be, oh, I was on the We Do Career Pathing session with you, and I loved what you had to say about X, and I only change out the X. I love to explore with other amazing women how we can help each other. Would you be open for a virtual coffee? And you make that bar really low. Virtual coffee could be 15, 20 minutes max. And then you can start to build that relationship. Chris, I'm curious to get from your perspective, both those tactical ways that you do it, especially when it's internally and you're trying to build some of those relationships with people who can help you on your path, especially because you've had so many twists and turns, just like Christy has. And then also what drives you crazy.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to speak some truth here, because I'm guessing as I look around this Zoom call that there are some introverts, because there always are, right? We're not an entire group of extroverts. I hated networking. I still hate networking. It is my least favorite thing to do. It is definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone. And there's a reason that there is the word work in networking, because it is work. And for people who aren't naturally extroverted, it does take a little bit more energy, right, to bring your full self into these situations. And I probably wasn't very good at it earlier in my career, because it was very intimidating to me. So this was before there was a lot of virtual engagements, and I was going to a lot of conferences. And I look back and think I probably didn't leverage those opportunities as well as I could have. A couple of things that over time I've learned from others how to do it better is, if you know that about yourself, if you know that you're going to DPAA next week, and awesome, how many hundreds of people are going to be there, but for some people that's a very, very intimidating setting. So find your friend, find your colleague, find your partner who's going to be like your buddy during this. And sometimes that person is a little bit more extroverted and can bring you along. I have a friend that whenever we go into a social situation where we don't know a lot of people, she'll say, okay, our goal is that we're both meeting 2 new people tonight. And I may tag behind her because she could be better at opening a conversation, or it may be an environment where I'm better at opening the conversation, but we hold ourselves accountable to that. And, you know, we usually time box it to, we're going to be here for 2 hours. We both have to meet 2 new people. And then we meet afterwards, and we exchange notes and, you know, go from there. But we actually do very much hold ourselves accountable to that. And that's been really helpful for me than walking into an open room kind of blindly, if you will. So give yourself permission to understand that this is hard and it takes a tremendous amount of energy for certain profiles of people. And with that, if the large settings are too intimidating, then think about just doing something smaller. You know, the reaching out and just having a coffee tends to be much more productive for certain people. Or, you know, talk to a colleague at work who you see on LinkedIn, knows somebody, and ask his or him to make the introduction, and then have them come along with you. Like, there's nothing the matter with that, to get over that hurdle of any point of intimidation. Second to that is when you're in the sessions, and I think we're already all talking about this, have an insatiable curiosity, ask the right questions, ask questions, and definitely be more of a listener. And then my biggest pet peeve in these situations is when anybody in the networking environment promises to do something. Oh yeah, I'm happy to introduce you to so and so, and they don't do it, right? Just follow up. And if you're the kind of person that is really bad at follow up and you know that, then just don't offer it. Don't offer it, because it's worse not to follow up and kind of ghost somebody or leave them hanging. It's totally fine to not offer that help in exchange. So networking is work. You have to bring your full self to it. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace in these situations, because they're not always easy for everybody.
Thank you for pointing that out. And you're absolutely right. It is, even for those of us, like, I will say I am the ultimate extrovert. Like, I wither up like a flower and die if I'm not with other people. But even after a networking event, I feel like I need to go and lay down, like I just ran a marathon or something. So that's even for people who are, you know, have their own issues with over extrovertism, if that's a new word that I just made up. Okay. I love all of those ideas. And by the way, what Krista said are great advice about deciding how many people you are going to meet at the event, or even if it's an internal networking event, can also be the best thing in the world to get you out of a lame conversation. Okay. So, or even just with someone where you realize there's no way that you're really going to take it any further or help each other more. People always struggle with, like, how am I going to get out of a conversation? What you're going to say is, well, you know, I came here with a goal to meet 2 people or 3 people at this event. I'm so glad I met you. So now I have 1. How many people are you planning to meet here? Make them say a number, say, okay, let's go. We both have to continue on our path to meet 2 people or whatever it might be. And then you're out of that conversation. So it's a way to handle it. Okay, so I want to shift a little bit, because as I had talked about, there is research that shows that women are far more likely to get the promotion if they can really prove out the impact or the performance and prove what they've done in a role, as opposed to so many men who simply just need to show that they have potential. And so I want to talk a little bit about, considering that the digital out-of-home industry is so fast-paced and results-driven and outcomes-based, we all are thinking about that from a company perspective all the time. But are there ways that any of you have been able to think about how you can showcase and quantify your own efforts and proved out and really be able to position what you've done or contribute, especially outside of a sales role? Because that is the one great thing is when you're in sales, the numbers can speak for themselves. But really thinking about, what are those other ways? What could we be thinking about? What could we be tracking to help be able to showcase the impact that we're making on an organization and why we're ready for that next step? So Christy, I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
I could use some of my team members as examples, you know, because I work, you know, obviously I'm a sales, I'm like, that's my passion in life, but I also have a huge passion in life for building people and bringing them along in their career paths. But when an employee goes above and beyond to bring a solution that I would have never thought of. I'll give you an example. So Lisa, she's our lead graphic designer. And when she goes, I'm like, hey, can you mock up this new mozzarella cheese pull for a digital board in Milwaukee? And she comes back, she doesn't just do that one. She brings 4 other solutions to me. And it makes our company look even better. So that proactiveness, thinking outside the box, doing something that definitely is not within your scope of duty, making yourself recognized, because it's me like, wow, you know, Abby, over and over, we didn't get that new client form. The contract wasn't exactly right, but not being annoying, but doing something that is above and beyond your line of duty and being thoughtful. Again, don't be annoying. Don't go every single day and toot your horn. It's humbly confident. And that's one of our core values here. It's like, I want you confident, but I want you humble about it. And I would just recommend that to all of you guys, is do something different or do go above and beyond, and do it because you care and because it's going to bring yourself value, a client value, a vendor value. So that would be my recommendation.
Terrific. And that humble confidence is so incredibly important for women as well, because if we, sadly, it's just the reality, don't shoot the messenger. But if we don't bring some of that humility into it, we can get this backlash of being too brash or too abrasive. And so we all like to be around people who have a sense of humility. But very importantly, we can't be too much on one side of that. We need to have that confidence, and we need to be able to talk about what we've done that brings value to the table at the same time. And so I'm curious, perhaps Krista or even Shannon, maybe it's something that you've been able to do, of to think about how are you, or have you, or how should everyone here think about quantifying their contributions, so that, you know, maybe it's something that they start doing now and it takes months, or it's something they continue even for years. But then when you need to be able to show that impact and why you're confident, you're able to do that.
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, this whole notion of measuring what matters is super important. So there's a line between quantifying and qualifying it, and in roles where your KPIs might not always be super easy to quantify. And I think that's something that you have to really sit down with your manager on and understand, okay, what does success look like to you? Like, that's a very fair question to be asking your manager a couple of times a year. What does my success look like to you? And gathering that feedback so that you actually have a better sense of how your performance is being monitored or viewed internally and externally. I think in almost every environment now, we are asking our people to step up and to be doing things that are beyond in their position description. And sometimes that's a big source of frustration for folks on my team. I know it is, I'm sure across your different organizations as well. So really kind of decide where you're going to put your hand up. And increasingly, I'm seeing a lot of wonderful active involvement in employee resource groups of people stepping forward saying, listen, I want to be part of informing the culture and coming to me with plans on how to do that. And I think that's sending a message on initiative. It's sending a message also on their conviction and commitment to the company. And I deeply appreciate that, because it says that there's a certain level of loyalty there as well. And then third, this notion around curiosity to me is really important. Understanding how the company is operating. And if you don't have many of us don't have full visibility to the company's business performance, but seek it out then. Like, go and set up on a quarterly basis some time with your head of finance and say, I just really want to understand how my contributions are translating into the overall results of the company. Because again, that's going to show a level of commitment. It's going to show a certain amount of curiosity, and it's actually going to show that you understand that the investment the company is making in you has to translate into results for the overall business.
I love that idea of really asking that question and figuring out what those connection points are. And certainly that's going to help with all of the other aspects as it relates to business success and growth. Shannon and Helen, anything that you would add on this quantifying and measuring success question?
I mean, I would double down on what Krista and Christy both said about looking for those opportunities that fall outside your scope. I think that's really, really important and something that you can really bring to all of your performance reviews, to your conversations with your manager. It's just really looking for those. One is having that curiosity to understand like what's really driving the business, and then connecting the dots back to how you can lean into that outside of your normal responsibilities and think about how you can drive that in an even deeper way. At Yahoo, one of the things we do on the B2B marketing team is we lean a lot into events and experiences. And it's always really, really hard to quantify the value that those bring. But one of the things that we're trying to lean in now is to really think upfront about what the expected outcome is. And if you can really articulate that upfront, then I think, at the end of it, you can really show what the work did to drive the value there. So I think for us in marketing, that's been one thing that's really worked, is to really think upfront, what is the expected outcome? And what would the headline be if someone were to write about this, right? And so that's been a helpful sort of framework for us in quantifying success.
I love that, beginning with the end in mind.
Yep.
And measuring against that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just actually wrote the same notes as what Shannon has said, is, come with the final, result in mind, and then also be really clear about how you're going to achieve that. So this is my objective. I expect it to deliver this. This is the resource that I need, and this is the time it's going to take. And by the way, if it doesn't happen, this is also, sometimes there's a negative consequence of not doing something or of not doing a project. So also, can you be clear about what the business might lose out on if they don't go ahead with this project? There may be a reason why they have to deny, whether it's resource or whatever, but you could also have identified that up front so that you've come with a full picture. And to Kirsty's point, to say, and here are potentially some alternatives. If we didn't have all of the budget to do it in one way, we could do this in another way and still deliver, maybe not 100%, but maybe at 80%. And maybe sometimes 80% is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. And I love that, exploring all the alternatives so you get ahead of that and then decide on that right path where you're going to say, this is where we're putting the stake in the ground. I did look at the questions that we have in Mentimeter, and there's one there that I'll answer, which was quickly, are there differences between how women and men network? And research shows the biggest difference between men and women is that men will view their relationships when it comes to professional networking more transactionally. So they'll recognize, like, we can help each other, let's help each other. And now when this relationship isn't necessarily benefiting each other anymore, well, that's okay, we'll move on, and I'm going to network with other people. Whereas women, because we're so pro-social and empathetic, and we really value our friendships and relationships, I'll hear very often from people like, oh yeah, I have a mentor. I'm 57 years old now, and it was my mentor when I was 23. And it's like, no. And that could be one of your mentors, but what you need at 23 and what you need as you're getting to further on in your career may be very different things. And so women are less likely to recognize that and hold on to specific relationships, rather than saying, oh, I'm moving into this new role, I need to develop these new skills, I need to meet some of those people who can either help me open doors, build out that skill set, whatever it might be. So it's not using people if we network, because again, always come at it with the value exchange mindset. You're helping them and they're helping you at the same time. So you don't have to feel bad about moving on when necessary. Okay, we're gonna do one last speed round to close this up. And that last speed round will be around, if there was one thing you could tell someone that they should do in 30 seconds or less to really proactively drive their career, what would that be? And I'm going to go in, let's go in alphabetical order by last name. So I'm going to have you, Krista, kick us off.
Oh gosh. Somebody said to me once, you can do anything for 2 years. So when you're trying to measure or monitor a risk that you want to take, think, can I do this for 2 years? Is it worth taking this leap and doing it for that period of time? And the reason that counsel was really helpful for me is because I had stayed at companies for a long time. And when I pivoted and went to something new, in my mind, I thought, okay, this is going to be for like 8 to 10 years. And that's scary as hell to me. And I'm not sure if I like these people, and I'm not sure if I'm in love with the product, but wow, the opportunity seems amazing. And the guidance in my ear was, well, can you do it for 2 years? Yeah, I think I could probably power through for 24 months. And then before you know it, that 24 months becomes 36 months. It becomes 3, 5, 6 years. So again, I think it goes back to giving yourself a little bit of that grace and permission to take the risk, and know that you can manage both the reward and any consequences to that.
I love that. I love that. Helen, how about for you?
My top tip, I would say, would be have open conversations. There are so many people that I've met who don't openly ask for what they want, or just don't explore those opportunities, you know. And I find that most people that I've met through my career, that I've worked for, have been really open. Actually, when I've dared to have that conversation, you know, I felt initially when I was a lot younger, more intimidated about having those conversations, saying, look, I'm not sure if this role is 100% right for me, but actually I'm really interested in learning more about X, Y, or Z. And actually, when you are open and sometimes making yourself a little bit vulnerable, actually they get a much deeper understanding of what you're looking for. And perhaps, yes, you've done your 2 years, and how can they help you look at something that's perhaps, you know, on a slightly different or a side road. And that, I think, has come to fruition, and enabled, you know, a lot of progression. So I would say be open and find allies, find people who will help you. And if they're helping you on the way up, make sure you're helping other people as well.
I love that. It's so important. We're always helping upwards and downwards along the way. Shannon, how about for you?
Okay, number one, I'm impressed that you did the alphabetical order thing so quickly.
I'm still like, what order am I going?
I know, I had to do that too, Chris.
I think I'm last.
And then the other thing is, like, I've been wanting to say the whole time, Helen, I think the sign behind you says it all, right? Maximize your impact. What a great background.
I did choose this room deliberately so that you could all, you know, with the theme of the webinar in mind.
Yeah, that's a great marketer. That's a great marketer.
Mhm.
I always lean into the, you know, 99% of the decisions made about your career are made when you're not in the room, which means you need to understand who your advocates are and what they know about you. And so that's my advice, really short and simple.
Love it. Make sure you're building relationships with those sponsors.
And not just one, share the love, because you need, you know, sometimes those advocates will leave and you want to know that you have other advocates in that room.
You are absolutely right. I love that advice. And then finally, Christy, you want to close us out here?
Yes. And I love what you guys like. Don't forget to ask for what you want, but this is what I'll tell you, because I've never applied for a job other than selling books door to door. One road, as I mentioned earlier, has always led to the next. And so, you know, the shipping, you know, obviously met the fountain. My point is, leave a lasting impression and let folks know that, you know what, I'm really intrigued with your business. And, you know, if anything pops up, same, guess what? Doug Connor, my business partner now, was one of my clients when I was at Circle Graphics. So things come full circle, right? One road goes to the next, but you want to be memorable. You want to be, wow, you were this sincere. Wow, you want to advance your career. I mean, it's taken a slight step up every step of my journey. So remember, people remember you, and leave a positive impact, and make sure you let them know I just always, that is what changed my career. I let people know I'm very interested in moving up. If you have anything in mind, let me know.
I love that. Be memorable and be clear and forthright about what you need and pull those people in to help you on your journey who can advocate for you when you're not in the room. So thank you all for your time and for being here. Don't forget to block out time for yourself to go through this and map it out. Also, mark your calendar because our next We Do event will be on December 5th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and we can't wait to see you there. So I'll stick around if anybody has any other questions that they didn't get answered. We'll leave the room open for a minute or two. But thank you all. And again, thank you so much to Krista and Christy and Helen and Shannon, and of course, Ajay, Blake, and Barry for all of your leadership across the industry. And can't wait to meet all of you in person in October at the Incredible Summit, where I know not only will we all make new friends and help advance our careers, but we'll learn a lot. So thank you so much.
Great job, Jen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yeah,
everyone.
Jen.
See you folks in
Great.
October.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you all. And Allison, we
right.
see that, I was just going to say, Allison, I don't know if you're multitasking or you had a question that you were sticking around for. But if we don't hear from you, I will assume multitasking. Okay.
Very likely. Thanks so much, Jen. I cannot wait to see you in person in October.
Oh my gosh, it's been way too long. I don't think I've seen you
I
in
know.
person since when? Like December? The holiday
It
party?
had to be, yeah, had to be.
That's
I've been
crazy.
running though, like going everywhere, all over the place.
Well, good. I hope running in good ways. I miss you though.
Oh yeah, always. You know me.
You are the best. Well, I will see you, I guess, now in just a few weeks. So that makes me happy.
Yes. Cool. All right. Take it
Okay,
easy.
wonderful. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.